welcome to A Beginner's Guide to Clear Sky Part 4. I'm going to dedicate this entire one to the changes done to artifacts. As I mentioned in the last video, they've had to change every artifact because there's whole numbers instead of percentages, but they've also changed what some of them do, like jellyfish. Jellyfish, I don't know if Stoneflower and Night Star are in Clear Sky because they've cut some of them and replaced them with other ones. And they've changed what all of them do, so the families, if you will, from Shadow Chernobyl don't always translate. So, using Jellyfish, Stoneflower, Night Star. Jellyfish now does minus radiation, and if the other two are still in here, you can see, how much attention I've paid. One could do minus bleeding, and the other could increase your carry capacity. So the effects are completely different, and what anomalies spawn them is different. Now, the old anomalies do still exist. I don't know if they can spawn artifacts, but I know the big ones I talked about in the last episode do spawn the new artifacts and the old artifacts. The new anomalies will spawn stuff. And the reason that it's kind of important to note the difference is they do something different. So, with a handful of exceptions, not counting, I think it's Jellyfish, Wrenched, and Bubble, which Bubble will come back in Clear Sky, or not Clear Sky, in Call of Pripyat. Call of Pripyat, not Call of Chernobyl, it's a mod. It will... All of those reduce radiation. Jellyfish is -2, Wrenched is -4, and Bubble, I think, is -6. Which you can either use as just your anti-rad stand-in or your vodka stand-in, or the thing you will probably end up using at least Jellyfish for is counteracting other artifacts. I haven't found another artifact yet in this, but just trust me when I say outside the rad reducing artifacts, pretty much every artifact you find will give off at least one radiation if you equip it. If you put it into your artifact container, it will slowly irradiate you. So you'll need to grab a Jellyfish or Wrenched or something to counteract that, unless you just have a lifetime supply of anti-rad or vodka. But there is an added benefit to that. If you get Bubble, which I don't remember how early you can get Bubble, but if you get Bubble, most of the outfits only support 4. I think the Loner suit, the Seva suit, and I think there's one other that use all 5, but everything else only gets like 2, 3, maybe 4. And that's including the special upgrades. So, -2, it's a real cheap artifact, and I just realized that they jacked the price up for pretty much all of them, because if this used to be 1,000, they've at least quadrupled how much they're worth, which I never encountered or noticed anything like that before, just because usually the extent of how much I cared is going over to someone like Docent here and going, hey,
want to trade? Good luck to you.
What can I get for that? Yeah, total 3,200 for a Jellyfish. But I wouldn't look at how much it is, I just look and see how much I can get for it. So, let's not walk into a pole anymore. So that's why I never really noticed the value difference. And there are probably some people going, how can you not notice that something is now worth 3,000 rubles when before you could barely buy food with it, by comparison. That's about how much attention I pay when I'm selling artifacts. But with the, 2 or 3 containers, jellyfish here, if you get Mama's Beads, I think gives 2 radiation, so that doesn't work. But if you get the higher end artifacts, they only use +1 radiation. Like I think Moonlight is +1 radiation and +3 versus telepathy. And you can stack 2 of those and go into one of the heavy psi damage anomalies and just kind of walk around like nothing's happening. You don't even need upgrades to your suit, which I don't even think this one can. But you can do the same thing with any of the other anomalies that are one thing. Like I think there's one called Fissure in Dark Valley, which is almost entirely thermal. And the first few times every playthrough that I run into it, I forget just how hot it gets. I mean, even with a partially upgraded Stalker suit, if you spend too much time in there without it's not batteries or shell, because those are both electric resistance, without using the heat resistance artifacts, you just melt. Your health will just disappear while you're in there, unless you're just spamming quick med kit to keep yourself alive, which is another reason why stuff like getting the better detectors is kind of important, because I would not go into anything other than the anomalies out in the swamp with this thing. It's just too dangerous. But because, you have to have the detector and your bolts out, which I can't take out because I'm in the Clear Sky base, you want to minimize your time in the anomalies unless you have the artifacts, because if you have the artifacts, it almost doesn't matter. Now, if you've got yourself basically a hazmat set up somewhere, great. It's just one of those things that you'll want to have handy. And I'm kind of a pack rat with this game because of the different anomalies. But using the different artifacts to just kind of optimize before you go in saves you a lot of time and a lot of frustration while you're running around trying to dodge burner anomalies or clouds of poison while you're tracking down one artifact. Because one thing I didn't get to show is these artifacts bounce around a lot. They move. So, you literally are chasing artifacts. Don't think there's anything else without spoiling anything. I would advise you to come back to places like the swamp once you've gotten better detector. Because as I mentioned in the last episode, they have different different artifacts programmed in for detection. So this one only has the basic antenna and can only detect a handful of things. I wish one of the mods I had, or I have tried, had told me which ones it had programmed in, but they don't. I haven't found one yet. So just remember with bumping around in clear sky, if you didn't pick up an artifact because it wasn't useful or wasn't valuable enough to waste inventory space on in Shadow of Chernobyl, in clear sky, pick it up and check. And apparently pick it up anyway because they're now worth their weight. Because jellyfish is now 4,000 and it's the cheapest out of the radiation reducing one. I'd say it's worth holding on to all of them. And with that, I will see you next time.